with the initial change,
Yep.
it's just been, I mean, a frustrating year with injuries, not just to Caitlin, but obviously to Caitlin. DB ultimately ends up leaving.
Yep.
And so that, you know, we already talked about how you need time to gel, you need time to build chemistry. So how frustrating has it been that the chemistry has just, it's like start, stop, start, stop.
Yeah, it's definitely been a struggle. But I think just at the start of the season too, like, you know, you have your start of the season meetings and you're talking. And for us, it was about, listen, like no matter what happens in the season, it's next woman up and you have to be ready. And I feel like obviously struggling with injuries and then, you know, you sign people and then they leave and it's like, listen, like whoever is next, be ready to play because it doesn't matter. Like the games still keep coming. Like you still have to be ready to compete. And that's why I was so happy. Like when we signed Ari.
Aliyah Boston just sat down for an interview with Sue Bird. And let's just say, her comments about Caitlin Clark got people talking. From sharp truths to genuine praise and even a few reality checks, Boston didn't hold back. So here's the question. What was your reaction when she spoke openly about the pressure of sharing the court with Caitlin Clark?
It is. Obviously, you never want people to get injured, but the reality is you have to have that mindset and it gives other people opportunity. And then you hope ultimately you're all better for it when the injured players come back. But I'm curious, specific to Caitlin being on the floor, off the floor, and I saw you talk on your own podcast about like the spacing and how different it is. But when you're entering a game, like your mental prep, how does it change? Because it's two different systems essentially.
It is. Honestly, like when C is on the floor, I'm like, listen, be ready to run. Be ready to get out. Be ready because she's looking. She's looking.
Going.
She wants to play fast. Super early in the offense. And like we do that too as well here. But I think sometimes too now without her, like we can get into like a little more half court execution, make the defenses work a little bit harder, first side, second side, third side. And then I think when you have like Kelsey, when Kelsey's playing in transition, get that ball up to her and make her
I've never seen anybody so bouncy.
Aliyah Boston's comments didn't sound scripted. There was no polished PR-approved response written by a media team. On Sue Bird's podcast, she just spoke honestly about what it's really like sharing the floor with Caitlin Clark. And let's be real, raw honesty carries way more weight than another feel-good headline pretending everyone's best friends.
So entering year 3 for you, which is this year, as you said, it's a lot of change.
Yes.
You have a coaching change. Yep. You have it's a big free agency year for you guys. And really overnight, what that big free agency year was, or big change was expectations change.
Yes.
So you guys went from like this up and coming, where it's like you're getting to know each other, to now it's like, oh, they could win the whole thing.
Yeah.
So what was the experience of essentially becoming like, instead of being the hunter, you're now the hunted?
Yeah, it's crazy, but I feel like it was definitely expected. Like, I think number one, like just last year, everyone, like when they see our name on the schedule, even though the year before we didn't win, like we won 13 games or whatever it was. And it was like, okay, well, but then you added in Caitlin, right? And everybody's like, oh, like they're going to be this, and this. And now everybody's like, oh, you know what? We're going to prove you wrong. Like, hell no. Like, that's how it is.
Aliyah Boston's perspective cuts deep because she's living it firsthand. Caitlin Clark has already been branded the face of women's basketball, ESPN's highlight machine, the league's ratings booster. The player fans can't stop watching. That kind of spotlight follows you everywhere, whether it's on social media or the second you walk into a sold-out arena. And Boston sees it clearly. She openly admitted that Clark brings attention, pressure, and expectations to every single Fever game. But here's the key. Boston isn't some jealous teammate fishing for sympathy. She's a star in her own right. Rookie of the Year in 2023, an all-star, and the foundation of Indiana long before Clark came to town. Still, the moment Caitlin touched down in Indianapolis, everything changed. Suddenly, every miss was magnified, every awkward play went viral, and every result, win or loss, was analyzed like it was the finals.
Everybody's like, yeah, like they got, for us, we always think like you have to approach every season with like, we're winning this whole season. So that was our mindset. And I think when you look at expectations, once again, expectations come from everyone outside. Because like in our circle, we know exactly what we want to do. We also understand that it's a process. We understand that new faces, new coaches, like different style play for people joining us. It's like people need time to figure it out once again. But when you do figure it out, it's going to be scary. And I feel like that's what it was for us, and that was our approach. And we're still like, listen, we are coming here to win this thing. Like, that's what it is, and that's not going to change no matter what.
And that's where Aliyah Boston's honesty really hits. On Sue Bird's podcast, she made it clear the pressure wasn't just on Caitlin Clark, it spread to the entire team. Because when the media frames Clark as the savior, every stumble turns into a storm. And when the Fever struggle, the spotlight shifts. And players like Boston end up carrying that weight too.
And Ari, I felt like that was like amazing for us, because obviously we couldn't predict C being out for this long at least. And so it's like having someone in that runs the point well, can call her own number, I think honestly has been like our biggest blessing. Obviously now with Bibbs, like she's coming in, she's able to stretch the floor. It's like, I think no matter what, everything is for a reason, right? And that's kind of our focus is, listen, like whatever happens, but whoever is here in our circle, listen, like we're here to hoop.
Yeah.
And that's how we're going to play. And so I feel like that's just been our approach. Like, it hasn't been perfect. There's definitely been injuries here and there, but
Boston reminded everyone of a simple truth. This was her first season sharing the floor with Caitlin Clark. Yet somehow the outside world expected flawless chemistry right out of the gate. It's as if critics assumed Boston should instantly know Clark's rhythm, her timing, her vision, without ever logging real minutes together. She put it perfectly. We weren't given that grace period of like getting to play with someone you've never played with. That line cuts deep because it's the reality. In the NBA, we constantly hear how chemistry takes time to build. When LeBron James joined forces with Dwyane Wade and Chris Bosh in Miami, it took nearly a full season before the pieces truly clicked. But in the WNBA, with Caitlin Clark, patience went out the window. Fans acted like if the Fever weren't contenders on day one, then Boston and the rest of the team must be failing. You could hear the frustration in her words, even though she delivered them calmly. No finger pointing, no excuses, just honesty about the process. And considering Boston is only 23, that level of composure speaks volumes about her maturity.
She is moving, she's making the right read, and it's like, listen, and she's scoring the ball at a very high level. And so I think, it's a little bit both, like once again, like when she's on the floor, like she's looking to get up, people can be like, listen, I don't need to outlet because I know once we rebound, we're getting it up. But I also think it, once again, it's like puts people on their toes because they're like, whoa, I need to find Kelsey in transition. I need to find Ari now. Like, we got to find Sophie and Lexi knocking down threes. Like, it's different, but I think everyone is once again finding their own rhythm, and that we just did a great job of like.
The conversation eventually shifted to her on-court chemistry with Caitlin Clark, and Boston didn't shy away from the truth. She admitted that the first stretch of the season was tougher than expected. There were passes she wasn't prepared for. There were plays where she didn't catch Clark's vision in time. And of course, social media had a field day with it. Clip a single bad possession, add a snarky caption, and suddenly the narrative was, see, the Fever can't make this work. But here's the key. Boston didn't try to sugarcoat those struggles. She explained exactly why they happened. With more games under their belt, she started to read Clark better. She began to notice where Caitlin's eyes were locked, how she shifted her feet, and when the ball was about to be delivered, without a single word being said. That's how real basketball chemistry is built. Not from instant magic, but from reps, trust, and time. Boston even gave a striking example. Once you've played enough with Clark, she said, you don't need her to call out, cut, or screen. You can just tell by the way she moves. Suddenly the passes started connecting, and the Fever began to look like a true unit on the floor. And here's where the sarcasm comes in. Did people really think this would happen overnight? That Boston was supposed to become Clark's perfect pick and roll partner after one practice? That every lob would land like a highlight clip? Come on, that's not how sports work. Building chemistry is messy, and it takes mistakes to get there. Boston also revealed the darker side of the hype. She said trolls actually tweeted at her things like, "You're the worst big I've ever seen." Think about how absurd that is. This is a number, 1 overall draft pick, rookie of the year, and all-star. And yet some random fan behind a keyboard feels qualified to call her trash. Boston admitted she already puts enough pressure on herself, so hearing that nonsense is draining, and she's absolutely right. What stood out most is that she didn't dodge accountability. She openly acknowledged the early bumps with Clark, but she also called out how unrealistic it is for fans to demand instant perfection. Because in reality, building a guard post partnership takes film study, trust, and hundreds of possessions, not a handful of games. At the same time, Boston made sure to praise Clark. She described her as a phenomenal passer, someone with elite vision. She said that once she locks in on Clark's eyes, she instantly knows where to be. That's high praise, and it proves this isn't jealousy, it's respect. What makes this also fascinating is how Boston framed it. She didn't just talk about Clark as an individual, she tied it to the whole. Fever team. The pressure isn't carried by one superstar, it spills over to everyone. And that's what so many people overlook. When one player gets superstar hype, the entire roster lives in that spotlight, good or bad. Sue Bird, being the sharp interviewer she is, pressed Boston on her experience with Clark. And Boston never flinched. She didn't fall back on cliches like, we're just focused on the next game. Instead, she gave layered, honest answers that revealed both the challenges and the rewards of playing alongside Caitlin Clark.
What is it about them that they're doing that?
Just the best sports. See, like I don't know any other way to put it, but when it comes to us, when it comes to the Pacers, when it comes to sports in general, they show up and they're loud.
Yeah, no, being there definitely was just like a palpable vibe to like the whole city. I love that the city's kind of on the smaller side, so everything was convenient. You could like get around. But yeah, the fans really showed.
Boston made it clear that she recognizes the upside of having Caitlin Clark on her team. More eyes on the Fever means more exposure for everyone, more growth for the league, and more momentum for women's basketball as a whole. But she also pointed out the flip side. When the spotlight is that bright, mistakes get blown out of proportion, and there's almost no patience for players to learn on the fly. That's the reality of playing alongside a generational star. What stood out is that Boston never sounded bitter. She didn't complain, she sounded driven. Her attitude was basically, yes, the attention is heavy, but that's part of the responsibility now. That's what separates her from the usual sound bites. While most players would just toss out generic praise and move on, Boston leaned into the conversation. She essentially said, this is great, but give us the space to grow together. That kind of honesty hits harder than any cliche. She also reminded people that the Fever are more than a one-woman show. Clark may be a star, but this is still a team game, and Boston wasn't afraid to defend that truth. And let's not forget where Boston comes from. Growing up in St. Thomas, she didn't have the luxury of polished indoor gyms or endless resources. She played in co-ed leagues with almost no other girls, trained outdoors in the blazing heat, and had to fight just to get noticed. That upbringing built her toughness. So when she talks about pressure, expectations, and what it takes to succeed, she's speaking from experience, not theory. That's why the way the media twists her words feels so off. Headlines frame it like drama between Boston and Clark, but if you actually listen, it's nothing like that. She's not tearing Caitlin down, she's explaining the process, standing up for her own journey, and at the same time giving Clark plenty of credit for her skill. It's way more balanced than the hot take culture wants fans to believe. Part of what made this podcast so powerful is the fact that she was talking with Sue Bird. This wasn't just some random interviewer. This was a legend who knows exactly what it's like to share the floor with superstars, manage expectations, and slowly build chemistry. That kind of host makes players feel comfortable enough to open up, and you could hear that comfort in Boston's voice. She was being real, not rehearsed. Stay back for a second, and it's clear this interview is about more than just Boston and Clark. It's about how we as fans and media treat athletes in the social media era. Everyone wants instant storylines, instant wins, instant highlight reels that confirm their biases. But the athletes? They're in the trenches, grinding through mistakes, building trust, and figuring it out one game at a time. So when someone like Aliyah Boston gives us that reality check, we should take it seriously. Her words about Caitlin Clark weren't just about chemistry or pressure. They revealed what it's actually like to share the floor with one of the most scrutinized young stars in sports today. And the truth is, even now that Clark is no longer a rookie, the spotlight hasn't cooled off. If anything, it's hotter. And Boston made sure to remind everyone, being Caitlin Clark's teammate means living inside that spotlight whether you asked for it or not. Boston opened up about just how loud the outside noise was in those first few months alongside Caitlin Clark. Every turnover became a viral clip, every misread turned into a meme. She admitted it tested her patience, but instead of treating those struggles as setbacks, Boston framed them as lessons. Playing with a guard who pushes the pace like Clark, who sees passing angles most players don't even notice, has forced her to raise her own level. It's not just about surviving the hype, it's about matching the intensity that comes with it. She also got real about social media. Boston said she's already her own toughest critic, so when anonymous trolls struggles pile on, it feels unnecessary and exhausting. Still, she's learned to flip it into motivation. She made it clear she won't drown in negativity. She'll use it as fuel. That kind of maturity is rare for a young star, but it's exactly what she showed. What stood out is how Boston balanced honesty with respect. She didn't dismiss Clark's spotlight or chalk it up as undeserved. In fact, she doubled down on Clark's skill, praising her vision and passing. Boston described how she doesn't always need words anymore. Just one look from Clark tells her where to go. That's not jealousy, that's growth. It shows she sees the bigger picture. The pieces are there for something special. It just takes time. Sue Bird, who knows a thing or two about playing with legends, guided the conversation perfectly. She pushed Boston to zoom out and reflect. Boston's response? The Fever benefit from Clark's spotlight. It raises the profile of the entire roster. More cameras, more fans, more opportunities. But there's a cost. Outsiders expect perfection every night, when in reality, they're still building, and the timing matters. This isn't Boston's rookie season, when Indiana sat at the bottom of the standings. With Clark in the mix, the Fever are competing for the playoffs. Even as critics nitpick every possession, Boston wanted to make sure fans understand progress is happening. It may not always be flashy, but it's real. You see it in wins, in chemistry, in confidence. She also reflected on her journey. Growing up in St. Thomas, she didn't have the same access as kids in the States. No polished indoor gyms, no private trainers. She played outdoors in the blazing sun, often in co-ed leagues where she was told not to embarrass the boys. That built her toughness. So now, when some random online critic calls her the worst big they've ever seen, she just laughs. The same resilience that got her here is exactly why she's not breaking under that pressure. If anything, Boston's words should excite Fever fans. She's not hiding in Clark's shadow. She's stepping into it, standing beside it, and making it clear this is Indiana's team, not just Caitlin's. Every player is adjusting, improving, and chasing something greater. And that kind of raw honesty hits a lot harder than any canned line about trusting the process. By the end of the conversation, it was clear Sue Bird respected Boston's candor. She wasn't sugarcoating, but she wasn't tearing anyone down either. She told the truth about the challenges, about the growth, and about what it's really like sharing the spotlight with the biggest name in the league. That balance, tough honesty paired with genuine respect, is what made this interview so powerful. Aliyah Boston laid it all out. Pressure, struggles, respect for Clark's game, without filters, no drama, just reality.